for those of you who just joined, my name is Dawn Selak, and I am a Communications Manager here at ACEEE. Before our speakers begin, I'd like to notice a couple quick logistics. One, all attendees are currently in listen-only mode. Following our speakers' remarks, we'll open up the webinar to questions. Please type your question into the chat box or into the questions box if you would like to ask a question. At that point, we will go through some of those questions and answer them. Finally, this webinar is being recorded, and we will send a link to registrants after the webinar, likely within the next day or so. You can also find the recording on our ACEEE YouTube page. Now, I would like to turn it over to Brian Stickles, Senior Research Analyst for Finance Policy at ACEEE.
Thank you, Dawn. Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. We're going to be discussing financing clean energy investments. And for those of you who don't know me, like Dawn said, I'm Brian Stickles. I'm a senior researcher here at ACEEE. I lead our finance and economics program. And part of my responsibility at ACEEE is that I manage the agenda at Finance Forum, which is our annual conference dedicated to catalyzing investments in energy efficiency. And it's an excellent place to meet other people who have projects that they're trying to pay for and investors who are trying to look for projects to fund. We also have a healthy amount of academics like me who are interested in determining best practices for these sorts of activities. There are also folks there who are brand new to either efficiency or finance or energy, but know that their city or state or town could use a program or some funding. And so if you're not aware of it, the conference is just 2 weeks away in Tarrytown, New York. And this year, the content will be filled with topics like PACE, on-bill, energy efficiency as a service, energy service agreements, multifamily affordable housing, underwriting for efficiency, and solar plus energy efficiency. It's a wide and diverse array of topics. And so I hope that you all can join. And if you are one of the folks who are new to energy efficiency, energy, or finance, we're going to be holding some workshops prior to the conference so people can get up to date on topics like PACE or on-bill, who have their own separate workshop, as well as just energy efficiency finance 101 for folks who are totally new to the space and want to be experts before the conference even starts. So with me today are a few folks that you'll be able to meet when you actually register and attend our Finance Forum. And if you want to register, there's a little link at the bottom of this slide, or you can Google Energy Efficiency Finance Forum. It's also up on our website. It should be easy to find. And so without further ado, I should introduce some of the folks that will be speaking here today. Oh, great. So with me today will be Adam Krop of CDP. Adam joined CDP in 2017 after spending most of his career in financial services in roles ranging from equity research to investor relations. At CDP, he leads the city's Matchmaker program, which we'll be discussing today, which is a service that provides investors exposure to project development pipelines of sustainable infrastructure opportunities in global cities. After Adam will be Tom Deyo of the Montgomery County Green Bank. Tom is the inaugural chief executive officer of the Montgomery County Green Bank and has over 30 years of experience in the for-profit and nonprofit sectors in financing investment, technical assistance, knowledge building, and grant making in housing and community development and green programs. And our last speaker today will be Gwen Yamamoto who joined the Hawaii Green Infrastructure Authority in May of 2016 as the managing director. Happy 2-year anniversary to you, Gwen. And in 2017, she was appointed the executive director. She brings over 30 years of experience of strategic leadership and management experience in commercial and credit union banking, as well as community development financing. So we have a stacked set of speakers today, all of which will be attending Finance Forum in 2 weeks. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Adam to discuss CDP and its Matchmaker program.
Thanks very much, Brian, for that introduction. And thanks for the opportunity to speak on the webinar today. So yeah, my name is Adam Krop. I joined CDP in 2017, as Brian mentioned, to lead the launch of the Matchmaker program, which in a nutshell is a platform tool that we're using to connect municipalities to private sector services, such as underwriting and project development. So I figured I'd start with a brief overview of CDP for those of you that don't know us, then talk a little bit about the C-STAR program, the City, States, and Regions program, where Matchmaker came out of, and then I'll talk about in more detail about the Matchmaker program and how it's developing, how it helps develop the energy efficiency projects in municipalities. So CDP is a nonprofit organization that houses the world's largest collection of self-disclosed corporate and municipal environmental data. We were founded as the environmental disclosure, by environmental disclosure around 20 years ago, and headquartered in London with a large office in New York City. So our data is collected from an annual questionnaire that asks about climate change risks, including governance, emissions profiles, water risks, mitigation targets, and strategies. Originally, CDP was launched and originally focused on corporates. We work with about 6,000 companies, making up nearly 2/3 of the world's market cap. We work on behalf of investors, about over 600 investors, from large asset managers like BlackRock and State Street, to pension funds, to some smaller investment firms. So these investors use our corporate data to benchmark companies in their portfolio and how they're measuring and managing environmental risk. Next slide, please. So the Matchmaker program is housed within the cities team at CDP. Now, the cities program began a little bit later in 2011, so it's a newer but growing program. And I'll point out that in addition to environmental risks, cities report projects and their associated data that are seeking services and financing to the CDP platform. So we have about 600 cities, or just about 600 cities, that report to CDP, 147 in North America. We saw significant growth around the Paris Agreement, growing about 70% in 2016. Now, the growth's really been driven by non-state actors making a push towards some environmental disclosure, and the rise of groups like We Are Still In, America's Pledge, and more recently with the Greens Bond Pledge. Since the U.S. withdrawal of the Paris Agreement, we've seen received increased levels of disclosure inquiries from non-state level actors, so we're interested to see how that plays out in our 2018 disclosure cycle. So why do cities report? It's a bit different scenario than corporate disclosure in that we didn't have the same pull from the equity investors using the data for their portfolio analysis. So historically, cities have reported to measure progress year over year. You can't manage what you don't measure. Number two is benchmark versus other cities, and for accountability. But we are seeing some winds of that beginning to change. With the growth of the green bond market, interest in ESG factors in municipal investing, and bond rating agencies taking a closer look at climate change factors in their rating methodologies. Next slide, please. So what are some of the barriers to financing these energy efficiency and sustainable infrastructure projects? So in late 2015, CDP published a report in conjunction with some of its investor signatories that identified 4 such barriers. Number one, we have a knowledge barrier. Some of the mid to smaller cities report a lack of understanding and capacity of what investors require, and investors mention missing financial data and risk analysis or expected impact data or feasibility reports. So there is a knowledge gap that Matchmaker is trying to address. The second is a lack of mandate. So the city government needs to have a keen eye to the sustainability plans. We think this is a matter of education to overcome the notion that costs for sustainable projects are higher, and Matchmaker is, again, a position to address that as well. Multiple stakeholders is the third. So public finance is really not enough to cover all investment costs of these sustainable infrastructure plans, which brings public-private partnerships into play and an added layer of complexity. And number 4 is creditworthiness. Only 4% of the world's largest cities are creditworthy in the international markets, and only 20% even have a domestic credit rating. So again, Matchmaker was born out of numerous conversations with our signatory base and our city base. Investors were saying strong demand, there's strong demand for viable projects. They commonly said that they have capital to invest in sustainable infrastructure, but don't necessarily see a viable pipeline. And again, the ESG investing is kind of migrating into municipal finance, especially with the rise of green bonds and other environmental risks with rating agencies. What we're hearing from cities is that creating sustainability plans, but again, lack the capacity to put those plans into motion. Next slide, please. So what is Physically Matchmaker? So Matchmaker is set up as an online dashboard that showcases CDP's municipal project level data and city analytics. So it has the project level data, a data set there, and it also has our environmental risk data that we collect on an annual basis from our cities as well. So subscribers can screen projects that meet their business development needs, their criteria, and analyze, and cross-reference it with the city sustainability data that we collect on environmental risks. So subscribers can use the data for lead generation, for project pipeline, and they can also use it to map green infrastructure financing opportunities. So it could really focuses as a relationship building tool for pre-RFP projects. Next slide, please. So Matchmaker is a bridge between municipal governments and the investment community. Of the 570 cities that reported climate risk data, 362 of them reported projects in development at their respective cities. The cities use the Matchmaker program for these reasons, engage with cities and other city departments or agencies in the process of collecting data, so it can break down silos and educate cities on how to develop these sustainability projects, and also provides a connection to the private sector. So it can connect cities with private sector services that can help develop and implement the sustainability plan. Next slide, please. So it's a little bit on the Matchmaker process. We use our annual cities questionnaire to identify kind of high-level projects that are seeking investment in private services. That's our first round of data generation. We then go back and send targeted cities our project intake form. So this project intake form was developed in conjunction with our investor signatories, acts as a sort of a preliminary due diligence exercise, and it brings in more detailed project information to begin the project preparation process. We also sit with cities and consult with cities and to assist them in filling out this form, and then these submissions are uploaded into the Matchmaker dashboard. So we've identified over 1,000 projects from various different stages, from early stage scoping all the way up to shovel ready, from those 362 cities. Who are the subscribers? We're really focusing on two different categories right now. We have financial market participants as being the main focus at this point, and we also see as project developers as being potential subscribers down the road as well. So financial market participants include broker-dealers, banks, fixed income investors, private equity investors, and impact investors. So these subscribers are typically interested in learning about sustainable projects and identifying opportunities for investments that are coming down the pipe. And then the project developers, are something that we're exploring for 2018, are looking for project pipeline in order to build their business and offer technical expertise into these projects, and could possibly get involved at an earlier stage to help the project more mature and more bankable. Currently, all subscribers are on the financial side. We launched in October of 2017 with a handful of subscribers on the platform already. And they use the platform as a relationship building tool, project screening, streamlining due diligence process costs, and a tool for municipal ESG analysis. Now getting down to the project profiles, next slide. All projects in the dashboard have some sort of sustainability slant in improving resiliency or efficiency. Energy efficiency is the biggest bucket that we collect. As you can imagine, a lot of municipalities are out there looking to upgrade their, retrofit and upgrade their energy footprints in many of their municipal buildings. It's a global database, but 60% of the projects are based in the Americas. We have projects of many different sizes, including, a project, $5 billion seawall, down to a, $50,000 outdoor lighting project. And again, over 1,000 projects in the dashboard with over 52 billion in investment opportunity. And then the last slide, I just drill a little bit deeper down into the specific energy efficiency projects. If you can move forward to that slide. Again, over 200 energy efficiency projects from disclosing cities globally. Biggest chunk coming from North America, about 40% in North America. And again, these projects range from $100,000 outdoor lighting project all the way up to a $700 million mega project. And with that, I'll pause and turn it back to Brian and everything. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Adam. Up next, we're going to have Tom from the Montgomery County Green Bank.
Okay, thank you, Brian. And thank you, everybody, for joining us on this webinar. So I'm going to walk through the Montgomery County Green Bank, the country's first local green bank, and present to you about what are green banks. I'll spend a little bit of time giving you a little bit of background there, and then what we're doing specifically here in Montgomery County. And green banks can offer opportunity for you to think about, financing strategy for your energy efficiency, renewable energy needs in a marketplace. It's not the only one but it could fit within the toolbox of structures you're putting in place. So I'll walk through this right now, and I'll start with just sort of an overview of about green banks. And the first thing is, a green bank is not a bank. We are not a depository. We don't take checks, but we think of us as a clean energy finance fund. And our job is to really close the gaps that exist in financing markets in the energy efficiency, clean energy sector. And we're really using market-oriented approaches, working with private capital out there in partnership to create structures that support energy efficiency, renewable energy. And I'll dive deeper into those as we go forward here. But, at the end of the day, when, Green Bank's focus is on scale, and it's really trying to bring greater velocity to the investment in energy efficiency, renewable energy, clean energy in the marketplace. On the capital side, it's trying to take what capital it has as its corpus and grow that capital at a multiple and bringing in private capital, so making more out of its resource to the marketplace. In turn, the jobs in the work that it's investing in support clean energy jobs, translates into environmental benefits, reducing energy consumption, supporting the goals that the community may have in terms of reducing its footprint, greenhouse gas footprint. It also the jobs turn into healthy living environments and working environments through the work that's supported. And lastly, it promotes resiliency. It promotes resiliency if you think about the diversity of energy sources used, but it also promotes resiliency in the either business or the homeowner in terms of managing down their budgets and greater financial security. So it plays quite a good role across a multiple of outcomes. What are some green bank fundamentals? One, it's not designed to sort of replace capital that is already working in the marketplace. If capital's there and it's functioning and it's filling a need, that's great. Want more of that there. It's really to find out where the gap is and then to focus the energy of the financing in that place where there's a gap. And it's not trying to take it in on its own. It's really trying to do it in partnership with lenders and basically take an insurance or risk position in order to make the market for that, where that gap exists, more comfortable for the lenders to lend into it. So we take a risk position in order to get the lenders to bring their capital into that marketplace. And in so doing, we're doing it through a co-investment strategy where we're working with our capital and leveraging 5, 10, 20 times its investment in terms of greater capital in the marketplace for that gap space. And at the end of the day, we're trying to recapture that capital, to reuse it, and potentially return it to government when our job is done. We don't do it alone. It's all done through partnerships. And it's as you think of the product and the activities you're focused on, we're trying to focus across the spectrum of demographics so that it's not just for a particular population type. And often the green banks in their marketplace can serve to connect a lot of dots because of the way we're working with partners. We can present to other interested parties other options that may be in the marketplace as well. And in simple model, the green bank model is pretty simple. It has thank you for advancing the slides. It starts with, some investor. Many instances it's a government, it could be, utility ratepayer funds, it could be other some source, but there's an investment of resources into a green bank, and that provides it with its capital source. It uses that capital source in partnership with those private investors to provide some risk mitigation to them, to present a lending or investment product into the marketplace. They present that investment into the marketplace, invest in low carbon projects, and those low carbon projects then repay that investment. A portion of it goes back to the private investors, and a portion of it goes back to the green bank to support its investment. And at the end of the day, that investment should go back to the government if the product proves out to be as low risk as expected. There's many different structures that a green bank can take. Some are inside government, and they function as a government entity. Others could be quasi-government, that they're an agency of government created to function slightly independent, but still with quasi-governmental. Some are government sponsored, which is what the Montgomery County Green Bank is, which is chartered by government but running independently, and I'll get more into that. And some are just an independent nonprofit set up to be a green bank and securing their own resources separate and have no connection whatsoever to government. And there's just a lot of momentum going on. It started at the very national large green bank, infrastructure bank side, and then there's many statewide banks that have been created: New York, Connecticut, Michigan, Rhode Island, Hawaii, and then there's Montgomery County, which is a local green bank. And there's many others that are being thought to be put in place across many different either cities and or states. So it's an idea that's gaining much more momentum and currency out there. Next slide. So Montgomery County Green Bank, I'll focus in now about us. We were chartered, so we're that government-sponsored enterprise. We were sponsored by Montgomery County in June of 2015. There was a whole set of working groups set up in order to understand what the Green Bank's mission and objectives should be. And then the county designated it as its Green Bank. We're an independent 501c3. We have an 11-member board, only 2 of which are from the county, so we remain strongly independent of the county in terms of decision making. And the county was investing $14 million from a settlement that was between Pepco and Exelon, in which there was a settlement dollars that were dedicated to energy efficiency, and the county, in its wisdom, felt it was more important to leverage that money into a multiple than to use it one time in a rebate program. And so they created the Green Bank, and that was the corpus for the Green Bank to leverage. And our exercise is to support the county's very aggressive greenhouse gas reduction goals, create jobs in the marketplace, create business strength, and create equity or equitable investment across the demographics of the county. Next slide. So what's our job? Our job is to make investments with that money. We're not to provide grants with it. It really is money there to be leveraged. There are other opportunities to the utilities in that for incentives and grants, but our job is to leverage it and not to grant. So we work and we attract other lenders in there, and we use their capital to scale up the work. And our job is really to grow the private sector market here in clean energy and investment. So we're to try to create products that bring new capital in, either from existing lenders that are here or bring in new lenders into the market that are not here. And as I noted before, you do that by de-risking the products. And I'm going to go through an example so you can understand what this whole idea of de-risking is. And that, if the idea being, if we get those lenders in there and they're working in that market and they're learning that this is not a high risk product, that they eventually move us out and they actually operate functioning without our credit enhancement. The other major initiative for us is we're to generate revenues, right? We've got a limited amount of capital, so whenever we create these structures, we're finding ways to generate revenue to sustain our operations. The other thing that generating revenue means is that the lenders who participate recognize that we're making some stream of income from those products, and if that stream of income if we can make it, then they can make it, and therefore they might want to take this market over without us and take on that stream of revenue. And that moves us into the market transformation of trying to make no need for us in the long haul. So the example here. So the first product we put out is a commercial loan for energy efficiency and renewable energy. What we did is we went out into the marketplace. We talked to a number of contractors in the market and lenders, and we found that there was a gap in the low-end financing under $250,000 that was not being covered by the county's PACE program or other programs that the lenders offered. And so through those conversations with the lenders and the contractors, there was a clear opportunity to create a product that would exist there. And the lenders were not providing any particular loan product that worked in the energy efficiency, renewable energy market for commercial, because they didn't understand it, and in particular, they didn't understand energy savings, and they didn't want to underwrite energy savings, and therefore, they felt leery about providing a loan product dedicated to that. So it represented an opportunity for us to come in and create a loan product in partnership. So if you go to the next slide, so and hit it one more time. There. So this is the loan product. It's dedicated to the commercial buildings and businesses, which would include all multifamily properties. We limit the scope of work to energy efficiency, cogen, solar PV, energy storage, because our job is to invest in that and not to invest in just general business property improvement. And also by limiting that scope, we believe that the energy savings will be produced, and therefore the loan should be a better performing loan. We set it up as a loan loss reserve structure. We've got two banks. We've got a local bank, Revere Bank, who came to the table and wants to add capital locally, and then Ascentium Capital, which is a national lender, bringing their capital newly into the Montgomery County market. And we working with just contractors that have been approved for the utility program so that we maintain some level of quality control. The loans that are set up are from $10,000 to $250,000. We got the lenders to provide 100% financing for the retrofits that would be undertaken. Loans will go out 12 years. That does help in terms of matching the savings to the loan payment. Even though they're not underwriting the energy savings, it does allow for the match of that to occur. The big thing was that the loan was not going to be secured by the property. That's very helpful for the multifamily properties as well as other commercial businesses that don't want to add another lien to their property. We're able to maintain lower rates on this, even though given the 100% financing and the unsecured and the long-term nature. And as I noted, the customers are underwritten for credit and not for the energy savings, and so the lenders don't have to twist themselves around to try to understand that cash flow. Next slide. So this is sort of the way it looks as a structure. We're the green boxes there. We stand behind the lenders. We bring our capital to the table. We stand behind the lender in terms of any losses that they may incur. We approve contractors. So the contractors go out and they work with customers. They scope out the work of the need. They figure out what the energy savings in. We require a minimum of 15% energy savings. The customers get the loan from the lender. We're behind the scenes. If the loan was to default, then we would step in and pay off the lender, and I'll talk to you in a moment the terms of that. But it gives the lender the comfort knowing that they have some backstop on that particular loan, given they're not doing a deep dive on the energy savings underwriting. So if you go to the next slide. So this is what sort of investment and return looks like for the Green Bank. So we're providing a loan loss reserve that would support up to 80% of the lender losses. So the lenders are on the hook for 20% of those loans. That keeps good alignment around managing the risk and making sure that good loans are made and that it's just not a given that they would receive 100%. So they're always going to have a little stake in it. We're covering 5% of their total portfolio. So, we're putting $1 million in, and we've got $20 million of capital being committed to this program. And so a lender can claim up to 5% of the portfolio as losses. That's double what their normal commercial loan programs would find as default. So they got pretty good coverage there. We maintain the loan on the capital on our balance sheet, so we get some small amount of return for that. And Michigan, a program similar to this in Michigan demonstrated low losses. So we do really figure that this is going to be a low loss program, and we should be fine in its structure. On the return side, we make a fee. for each loan that's originated. It comes out of both the contractor side and the lender side. And then because the money's on our balance sheet, we make a small return of interest on that. And then if there is a loss, we pay that loss out. But if there's a recovery, then we are compensated back at our 80% in terms of getting any recovery. Next slide. So, that's our commercial product. We also have a residential product we're looking at developing now that would be for the residential homeowner sector. We're looking at a specific product for the affordable rental market, which is a little bit more complicated than the market rate of rental market. And then we're also looking at particular products for solar and community solar and finding different structures. So there'll be different structures for each one of those, but that's the nice thing about being an independent green bank. You can work up different structures and different models and have that flexibility. And then the last slide, just some keys to think about in standing up a green bank. Capital is first and foremost the most important thing, and the best source of that's going to offer few requirements on it, so that you can be as flexible with your investor and lending partners as possible. You need to set up an infrastructure. The beauty is this is a small network out there, and there's a lot of consultants or other network partners out there that can give you a lot of the infrastructural ideas and operating documents you might need. You want to think about sustainability when you set it up, so that you don't use up that capital for your own operations, and how do you generate some revenues to cover yourself and be sustainable. Give yourself a runway of at least 3 years to get there. It takes some time to get there, but it's achievable. And then you want to think about a market strategy. You definitely want to identify yourself as an investor and not as a subsidy source. And a lot of times the marketplace will try to push you quickly into the subsidy source. So you have to define yourself quickly. And then you need to find models. And again, the network is out there, and it has developed quite a few models. You can pick those up and move with them, so you can be relatively quick to market. So that's the close of mine, and I appreciate the opportunity to present and wait to see if there's any questions. Back to you, Brian.
Thank you so much, Tom. We got a few questions coming in on your presentation. We'll try to get to those at the end, but I want to pass this conversation along to Gwen, who's going to talk about the Hawaii Green Infrastructure Authority.
Thank you, Brian. Aloha and good morning if you're in Hawaii, or good afternoon if you're located in the rest of the states. I'm Gwen Yamamoto from the Hawaii Green Infrastructure Authority. Next slide, please. The authority was created in November 2014 to administer a clean energy loan fund. The loan fund was capitalized by a $150 million green energy market securitization, hence the name GEMS bond. The bond issuance was an innovative method to leverage a rate reduction bond to provide low-cost capital to facilitate and finance clean energy. Next slide, please. With the immediate and significant savings benefiting a ratepayer when cost-effective energy efficiency measures are installed, one would think that the decision to move forward with an energy efficiency project is a no-brainer. Next slide, please. Unfortunately, as we have all come to realize, it's not so easy, especially in the government sector. Let's take a look at some of the obstacles. Next slide, please. Not sure if anyone have ever come across this before, but a big one is employee resistance. In an ideal situation, the government agency would increase its budget to hire an energy czar, or someone who is responsible and accountable to move energy efficiency initiatives forward. Unfortunately, the more likely situation is to add this additional responsibility to an employee who probably already has a full workload. To make matters worse, for a non-energy layperson, there is a steep learning curve, as was previously mentioned. A recent study indicated that only 57% of adults in the United States are financially literate. An even lower percentage is energy literate. Making that rock going uphill even heavier is the technical knowledge required to understand the complexities of the numerous energy efficiency technologies available. Next slide, please. Working through a government procurement process is not an easy task. I think that's enough said. Next slide, please. And last but not least, being appropriated sufficient capital by the legislature or city council to invest in energy efficiency retrofits or having access to flexible financing is often an obstacle, not unique to government agency. Next slide, please. In a conversation I had with an executive at a large company here in Hawaii, while chatting about managing employees, he said, Gwen, when you have to get employees to do their work, you can either use the arm or the charm. While we would all like to believe things will simply get done by the charm method, in other words, because it's the right thing to do and installing energy efficiency measures is good for the environment, sometimes when there are significant obstacles, one must use the arm method, adding a little muscle to motivate. Next slide, please. Hawaii added muscle by establishing aggressive clean energy goals. In 2008, the Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative established a mandate that by 2030, Hawaii must reduce energy consumption by 30%, increase electrical generation from renewables by 40%, and reduce the use of petroleum for ground transportation by 70%. Additionally, a number of other mandates were subsequently added, such as Act 97, which made Hawaii the first state to set a 100% renewable portfolio standard for the electricity sector by 2045, and Act 99, which established a collective goal for the University of Hawaii to become net zero with respect to energy use across all campuses by January 1st, 2035. Next slide, please. With the mandates in place, the next step is to gather relevant information and data, such as identifying the energy efficiency market potential. Enernoc Utility Solutions Consulting prepared a study for the Hawaii Public Utilities Commission in January 2014. According to the study, the majority of the statewide energy efficiency savings potential is found in the commercial sector, and state agencies are included in the commercial sector. Next slide, please. Additionally, in its lead by example report to the legislature, the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism provided electricity consumption by state agencies, as you can see. Next slide, please. The next key ingredient necessary is having policies that promote and incent energy efficiency retrofitting. As an example, Hawaii has a statute that allows agencies to continue to receive pre-retrofit budget appropriations for the duration of a performance contract or a project payment term. This is the mechanism that allows our loans to be repaid out of the energy savings and provides an agency an incentive to implement energy efficiency projects. Next slide, please. To reinforce the impact and the importance of the statute mentioned in the previous slide is an example of a loan we provided to the Department of Education, or DOE. Historically, DOE projects were funded by general funds or CIP funds, which did not require repayment. As such, when the legislature approved Act 57 last year, allowing the DOE to borrow GEMS funds for their lighting retrofit project, they were at first a bit nervous about having the responsibility to repay the loan. As such, instead of moving forward with their original plan to just retrofit interior, exterior, and stadium lighting at 242 public schools across the state, which was estimated to save approximately $8 million in utility bills annually, they introduced innovative implementation strategies which enabled them to install deeper retrofits with the same amount of loan funds provided, and is expected to result in $10.5 million in bill savings annually. Additionally, after servicing our GEMS loans, the DOE will have an estimated net benefit of $8.3 million annually to use to install more energy efficiency retrofits or to invest in other programs for the schools. Next slide, please. With the significant impacts being enjoyed by the Department of Education, our state legislature passed a bill last week, and it is now moving to the governor's desk for signature, to create a $50 million revolving loan fund for any state agency to install energy efficiency measures. HGIA will be collaborating with Hawaii Energy, our public benefits fee administrator, to ensure that any energy efficiency projects financed under this revolving loan fund meets or exceeds Hawaii Energy's enhanced efficiency levels and requirements. This bill is aligned with the legislature's goal to reduce energy consumption in state buildings and provides a low-cost, flexible financing solution for more state agencies to adopt and convert. Next slide, please. So that's all I have. Thank you, and I'll turn it back to Brian.
Thank you, Gwen. I really appreciate that. And so we have a few minutes left here at the end of the presentation, and we got a bunch of questions. So we're trying to get through some of them at least, and we're just going through them now. And I think a good one to kick off with is Tom. The first part of this question might not be applicable just yet. I know you're just getting off the ground. But what has been the rate of investment defaults so far? And I think it's going to be low, if non-existent. And if it isn't, what are some systems being put in place to limit those defaults?
So you're right. Our program just got on the ground middle of March, so we haven't got any defaults yet. So that's a good thing. But what we've seen with other programs of this nature in other markets, the loan defaults have been very small, like in the less than 1% range of loan defaults. And then what we've also seen is that those loans generally have been also recovered as well. So, and what we learned from some of those is most of them were not defaults of the energy and the scope of work. Most of them were business defaults, business operation defaults. Those are commercial businesses, and so often they find themselves, in other trouble besides just the energy loan. So, the experience in the marketplace has been that, it should be low default. In terms of what we're doing to try to mitigate and manage to that, we approved only contractors that also are already presently approved in the utility programs incentive program, and they do a quality control review of those contractors. So that gives us a sense of security knowing that the contractors have been approved by somebody else. We also pre-approve the scope of work and the budget to make sure that it meets up against with what we would allow for within our program, so that we know we're lending against the right scope of work. And then we tie our program to the utility program, and the utility does its own inspection of the completion. And so by doing that, we benefit from the leverage of their inspections to make sure that that there's been some oversight to what's been completed. And we will also do our own quality control inspection on the first couple of projects by each contractor, and then we will have regular surveys to the customers to make sure satisfaction. So we're trying to manage ourselves in terms of making sure we have the right quality of participants in this and some manner of oversight. And then on a monthly basis, we're getting reports from our lenders about performance of the loans.
Excellent. Thank you, Tom. The next question comes not particularly related to any one presentation, but I think ACEE folks can help answer it. The question is there a resource to be able to determine what type of tax investments or incentives or rebates are available for energy efficiency projects to help with developing business cases? And actually, ACEE has a resource there for federal energy efficiency tax incentives via our Smarter House website. So if you Google those words, you can find those. We can also probably put a link in a follow-up email as well. And so that's a good place to start. And then also your local utility will have information on those things as well. I think another great question, this one's going to be for Tom and Gwen, is how does the city determine if a green bank is a good fit? It's kind of a loaded question. It could be the subject of its own webinar or research paper. But Tom and Gwen, if you guys, Gwen first, if you guys could give just a quick, what could make that a good fit?
So for us, I would say to understand your market and what the gap financing needs might be, that would help you determine how the green bank can facilitate more clean energy in your market is by understanding what the stress points are for the lenders, the conventional lenders, as well as for the developers and contractors, and fit yourself between that in order to accommodate those stress points.
Yeah, the other I would, at the local level, I would say, how is the collaborative nature of the marketplace in terms of and the openness of the partners locally to collaborate on lending and investing, and also what's the opportunity locally for that upfront capital to be made available in order to sort of stand up the green bank. And it might be local funders who have an interest in this. It could be the utility on the ratepayer funds could be it. It could be local government. But I think it's is there a source of capital that is interested in doing this, and how strong is the collaborative nature in the marketplace?
Excellent. Thank you guys so much. And I'm sure that if you guys attend Finance Forum, they'll discuss some of those issues in greater detail. So I encourage you guys to attend again. And this one goes to Adam. Adam, does CDP ever act as a financial intermediary or an underwriter, or does it refer just their clients to other investors or intermediaries?
I'm sorry, I think I missed the beginning of that question. Can you repeat it? I'm sorry.
Sure. Does CDP ever act as a financial intermediary or an underwriter, or does it refer all those to other investors or intermediaries?
Okay, yeah, appreciate that. No, so CDP, we're a 501c3 nonprofit, so we cannot get involved in the broker-dealer side of the business. So we leave all the finance and all the introductions and all of the, the discussions between the cities and the financiers to them. I mean, so that all goes to the subscribers and is of the sole discretion of the subscribers. We position the platform as a online inventory, a passive online inventory. It acts as a clearinghouse for these projects where we maintain a arm's length relationship to it. So no, we are not involved as a financial intermediary. Great, thank you, Adam. And the next two sort of, I think I combined a few questions here for Gwen. Gwen, the program in Hawaii has gotten a lot of interest, and actually it's going to be a topic specifically at Finance Forum, kind of how the program itself has grown a little bit. And I know that we're pushing against time, but if you wouldn't mind kind of just saying, how Hawaii has grown a bit, especially under your leadership, beginning with the green energy market securitization, and then talking about how it's sort of transformed its role over the last year or so.
Yeah, so just in a nutshell, it was by luck. No, in a nutshell, it was it's really going back to finding the gap for financing and working collaboratively with partners. I really appreciate all of the energy. We have very engaged energy stakeholder group here in Hawaii, and so lots of great feedback in order to craft a program that meets the needs of the state. So on the residential side, on the commercial side, now on the governmental side, for both the the solar PV as well as the commercial energy efficiency. So, we really looked at what was needed, started with solar PV, and expanded it to also include energy efficiency. And shortly, we'll be launching our on-bill program.
Excellent. Thank you, Gwen. Yeah, I think the story coming out of Hawaii is incredibly interesting. And we're going to talk about it at length at Finance Forum. I know this webinar is for Finance Forum, but I keep talking about it a lot, and it's great. The questions that are coming in are directly related to some of these questions that we're having. Somewhat off topic, well, not I guess off topic, but another interesting question coming in is about the relevancy of financing structures and green banks in this market. Some of our audience seems to think that we've reached maturity in an energy efficiency financing. And as someone who does research on this, that's actually a question that we're posing directly at Finance Forum is what does a mature market look like? My inclination is that we're seeing, I think, in some instances, like with the reduction of the use of PPAs in the solar market, moving towards more traditional loans and leases, that people sort of like prefer the uncomplicated, kind of vanilla financing instruments. And so, green bank folks, how do you say that you fit into a mature market?
So this is Tom.
Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, a great question, and I think what I had started out at the beginning saying, which is the job of ours is to sort of find where those gaps are. And if I went to the product we developed, there was a sort of market already here that was the commercial PACE program, right? And it was serving a certain market niche, but it also doesn't function at a too small level because the cost to originate that and enter it is pretty burdensome on a business. So there was a gap sitting there that the marketplace wasn't filling, right? So the market was mature enough to have a commercial PACE program, but it wasn't yet mature enough to cover the bottom end. And we're also now exploring something that we might be able to bring in some other resources at the very large end of that market through partnerships in the network that then create a continuum of financing from the very small project to the sort of middle-sized project to what could potentially be the large-sized project. So I think, the marketplace is maybe maturing in terms of its thinking about undertaking energy efficiency, renewable energy, but that doesn't mean that the financing market has necessarily found a way to serve it all. And so I think the Green Bank still has a place to play in where the misses are, and or to bring other resources and to make the financing available for the maturity of the market to know it wants to undertake that work.
I agree with Tom. I think now more than ever, green banks are important. I will say that initially, Hawaii had a lot of power purchase agreements going on years ago, and that's when the utility rates were rising every year, rising. So people locked into power purchase agreements, believing that rates will continue to rise, and this is a way to protect themselves from the increasing utility rates. Unfortunately, what happened was the cost of oil decreased, unbeknownst to all of us, right? And so people who were locked into PPAs are feeling maybe that might not have been the right thing to do, although I think it's always the right thing to do at that time. No one knows what's going to happen, right? So as that has occurred, people are looking at how can I do direct financing, perhaps as an option. Power purchase agreements are always an option, as is direct financing. I know for our product, we are we launched a subordinated product to conventional lenders, and we wrap ourselves around them. We are allowing them to fit more into the box that they're comfortable. Here in Hawaii, I think some lenders were stretching out their loans for 10 years just to make the cash flow work. They're typically more comfortable in a 5 or 7 year term. So with our product, we allow them to go back into the box that they're comfortable in lending, and we stretch our loan out to 20 years, which is the estimated price, useful life of the PV product. So, I think more than ever, finding ways to work collaboratively with conventional lenders is more important than ever, instead of it's mature and we don't have to worry about it.
Great, thank you both. I have to say that I totally agree. I think that we are reaching market maturity. Everyone is aware that energy efficiency can save money, that solar is booming, but there is on both sides investor wariness, and then issues with and brain damage getting consumers to sign up. And the purpose of green banks is to sort of facilitate that relationship, and actually build these markets to where they can actually reach maturity. I know that the green banks on the phone here, as well as the Connecticut Green Bank, do that sort of thing where they find a product or a program, and they try to make investors happy by with subordinated debt or other types of financing instruments to make it easier on them, and then do a lot of the legwork on the program side to get the consumers invested. And then their hope is eventually to remove themselves as that middleman and to create a market that is purely mature. So I agree with everyone there, and I think that's why we're on the call today and why we're invested in this stuff as well. And I know that we have a bunch more questions up here, but we are quickly running out of time. And before we end this, podcast webinar we got going on here, I want to say just a thank you to our presenters. I pitched this idea to them just a short while ago, and they are all super, super helpful, and they've done, I think, a great presentation here today. Like I said, they're all going to be at Finance Forum. We have up here on the slides now a list of our upcoming conferences that we're hosting. We have a link there to register to the Finance Forum if you'd like to attend. And my email address is up there in big block letters. If we can get to your question, please just reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns. And with that, I just want to thank everyone again. You've been an excellent audience, and our presenters have been excellent. So thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.